Okay, well, everyone, welcome to the Paid Search Association webinar. Today we have Christi Olson and Anu. How do you pronounce your last name?
Phonetically, just go like Adegbola.
Adegbola.
Yeah.
Adegbola.
Yes. Yes.
I love it. Well, I always make it a personal goal to pronounce people's names. I'm Lisa Raehsler here. So today we're going to be sharing PPC tips. And I think if you're ready, you guys ready to get started? Let's do this.
Sure. Maybe give a little bit of introduction of myself as to, you know, what gives me the right to be giving anyone PPC. Right. I have been doing paid search for just over like 12, 13 years in London, UK. That's where I'm talking from here. And yeah, I started on agency side. I feel like I've done like the whole spectrum of doing digital advertising. Started agency side, went in-house. I've done freelance, and now I work for a tech company called Marin Software. And but yeah, it's always been paid search has been my bread and butter from when it was just, you know, very basic, where the search ads were just at the top of the screen, and you know, four lines of text. So I remember those days. And yeah, the person with more money got the top positions. But thankfully that has evolved. You get a lot more quality, a lot more I feel quality checks by our amazing search engines, Google, Microsoft, and the likes, and you know, to make sure we do this better, and it really separates the amateurs from the pros. And I feel like, yeah, me still lasting in it for 30 years means I'm doing something right. Always learning from the community, learning from our amazing PSA, other board members. And outside of doing my day-to-day paid search and being part of the PSA board, I also have a podcast where I round up, you know, all these things that we're talking about in terms of what's going on in paid search, about automation and data privacy, and how to do paid search well, the pros and cons of the different platforms, our frustrations. We like a good rant on the PPC chat. So I always encourage people to join there. You'll it's kind of a place where you will not feel alone with some of the annoyances that you may have. And we do get amazing people on there that will listen and will take things back to the platform and be like, yeah, this is what people are saying, guys, you need to fix it up. So yeah, I will let Christi as well yeah, then introduce herself. I've rambled on a bit before we get into the tips.
Yeah. So thank you, Anu. So I'm Christi Olson. I run paid search on behalf of Microsoft globally. I've similar to Anu, I've been in the space for longer. Like, I think I would be a junior or senior in high school now, getting ready to graduate. If I were thinking about age of school age kids, I started back in the very, very early 2000s, running paid search campaigns back when we're still I do miss the days of knowing exactly what your competitors bid and knowing how to outbid them by a single penny. Like, I love those strategies. Although it's not that I don't love the AI of today. It's just I've been doing this for a very long time. And a couple of you may know me formerly. I left my previous role 2 years ago, but I was also the search evangelist for Microsoft, doing all things paid and organic search for quite a few years on that side. And so just excited to be here, because I know, talking to Anu and Lisa coming into this, I have a slight different perspective now of how, like, some of the tips and tricks, because we're running everything from our small end campaigns are $5,000 a month. My biggest campaign is about $250 million a year. And so I've got a pretty good scale in terms of tips and tricks you learn when, like, what do you do when you have $5,000 versus 25 million a month, like, and having to then explain to leadership who wants the same amount of visibility and the same everything for a $5,000 campaign as you get for a $25 million campaign, and how do you work through those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I really encourage people to like put Q&As, put questions in the Q&As that, you know, pertaining to all those kind of campaign types, sizes, and, you know, that we could answer for you. So please do that. Lisa, do you want us to just go in? Do you have some questions for us that you'd like to start us off with?
I think well, I have all types of questions, but I know that you have a couple that you thought about beforehand.
Yes, I do. I think, I usually have this, like, I've talked at different conferences as well. And one of the favorite ones I've put together has been just like a high level, how to PPC like a pro. That's how I titled it. And it's literally like the main top things that you need to think about, with our industry, as Christi and I have alluded to, the industry is evolving so much. It's changed so much since we started, and it keeps changing, and it's all about how do you stay on top of all the new updates that are coming out. But I do feel that there's some things that have not changed at all in the past, like 10 plus years that we've been in this industry. The first thing I like to talk towards is the fact that paid search doesn't work in a silo. Paid search is not marketing. Paid search is not SEM. Paid search is paid search alongside SEO, alongside email marketing, alongside programmatic display, and all of these things. And especially when I was in agency, and it's why I moved quite a bit, you just see our team was the paid search team, and we only knew paid search numbers. We were only given paid search targets. We were only supposed to report on CPA. How that was actually affecting the business, how that we were comparing against other channels, whereas was never really visible. We'd see some trends that no matter how much we researched and got the best of brains in our company on, we wouldn't know what had made us CPC spike, or we wouldn't know what had made an impression spike. And then I remember there was one client, it was these guys called Woucher. They do, it's like offers. They do offers for anything, for like a spa day, and they will always have like 40-50% off on the full price of it. And they would give us information about when they were running TV ads, and when they had bought the schedule. And then we started realizing that there was a direct, not even indirect, a direct correlation on when the ads were running and how we'd see our volume spike, and how we'd see certain keywords be more expensive or less expensive, or some keywords just weren't getting, that volume. And we're like, yeah, there's we need a bit more of a, integrated strategy here, because they all work hand in hand. Christi, do you have anything to say on that?
I do, and it's actually, oh yeah, I'm off you. It's something that I've been in role for almost 2 years now. And one of the things that I have been working on is connecting with all of our organic search teams. So I fully believe on that integrated strategy side, but really coming from the paid versus organic search side of the house of how do we then work together to make sure we have a unified strategy to know what is the organic search team's goals, initiatives, where are they coming after. So I have been working very hand in foot with our Google Ads teams to make sure that we are linking the Search Console accounts and our paid search account. So we have one place that we can go that has a holistic view of both paid and organic search. And I don't think paid search folks understand, or even maybe the organic search folks don't understand, what you can see when you start to link that account data is it will start to give you overlap reporting, showing here are the keywords you're showing up for in paid, here are the keywords you're showing up in organic. When they both appear on the page, here you can start to see the lift across your entire website. So that way you can have those conversations with your stakeholders, your leadership team, as to why paid and organic work better together. And what we're seeing with so I have 65 lines of business that our team is responsible for. We've linked about 35 of them today, and we're having some challenges with getting everything else just set up, just due to the scope and the scale of the volume of our ads accounts. But when we start to see the linkage, like the question I get asked is, why should I run paid search on these terms when we rank organically? And we can start to see, okay, when we turned paid search off, we saw that the overall website wasn't just the 20% of the traffic that came in that dropped. We actually dropped 30 to 35% in traffic, because there is a boost across your organic search when paid shows up. So you're losing 15% by pulling paid search down. And so it starts to tell that story of how do you have more holistic campaigns? How do you work better together? And what was the interesting thing that I'm trying to pull the data to get for upcoming presentations, and it's just been pulling teeth to get all of our data organized in a way that makes it easy to pull, is like when we advertise on non-brand terms that our site just cannot rank for very well organically just because of the space we're in. Let's say online online gaming for Xbox. They're on page 3 or 4, but the organic team does see lift when we advertise on the paid side. So even though they're on page 4, they are starting to see lift in those page 4 results, even though I'm like, who scrolls to page 4 on Google? Or even Microsoft, like Microsoft Bing, like who makes it to page 4? But we do see the lift across the board on all terms and phrases, branded and non-brand, when we start to advertise. So like being able to have that data and insights to compare, like here has how paid and organic work together. This is how you have those holistic campaigns, like the somewhat similar to account-based management, where you have those remarketing strategies to take somebody that did first touch, second touch, and bring them through your journey. We see huge lift. And to me, I think I've been in the space so long, I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
Christi and Anu, there's a question from Melissa. Why do you think that is that you're seeing lift in organic from paid? Everyone always wants to know that.
Anu, do you want to take it first, or do you want me to go?
Oh, please go, because you will probably give a better answer than me. Because my answer is, well, it depends, which is one of our favorite phrases in this industry. Because look, it's thinking about human psychology, though, and that's also thinking about attribution, the conundrum, the biggest conundrum that is attribution. How do you attribute? And at the end of the day, I feel we also have to realize it's human beings. We are very unpredictable. Why? Yeah. Why? But you'll give a better answer. You go.
Well, and it goes back to, I really wish we could go back to the click studies that I used to see all of the clicks, the eye tracking and click studies from the early to mid 2000s. I don't think I've seen a really good eye tracking study post like 2011. I don't really understand why. And I know I keep on pitching like, hey, can we go back to running some of these different studies to understand user behavior? And in my mind, what I have personally seen is when we have ads with all the extensions and we have PLAs plus the ads plus organic search, that ownership of the page has a psychological effect, or appears to have a psychological effect on the searcher, where they see the brand, they see so much presence, they are more likely to click on that than something else that is also showing on that SERP. So the more that your brand or more that your products appear and have more visibility on the page, I mean, it somewhat makes sense. I mean, if you own the first 3/4 of the SERP, you're probably going to get more clicks.
Yeah.
But even if you're paid search in the top 2 and then you're toward the bottom of the page, something happens psychologically where it's almost like a switch is flipped, or like, oh, this must be really relevant. Look at how much I'm seeing related to that brand, product, or service on this page.
Yeah.
Although I will say that is what my current hypothesis, but without that eye tracking study, it makes it really hard to actually go back. In fact, I saw the eye tracking studies back in the day and I ran them in the 2000s. I have no idea what happened. And we haven't been doing them, but that's sort of where I'm at on that end for seeing it.
Bring it back, Christi. I believe in you. Bring it back. And
it goes back to like in the late 2000s, we had all this data, and it's pre the modern SERP where you have the knowledge pane, the infographics, the maps, the carousel, the product list. Like the SERPs have gotten so complex these days that we used to have this very, very less sophisticated rule where paid search got roughly 35% of the traffic, organic search got 65%. But now with all the variations of the SERP, I haven't seen an update with that, partially because AI is being run in the background. It's so different for every user based on their behavior, their everything, that you just don't see those stats anymore. And we don't see those stats because you can't predict what the SERP is going to look like because it is so user specific. And so I think that's part of the, like, why do we not do as much in the eye tracking study sides? I think it might have to do because it is so user dependent.
That's true, because it's all the platforms are trying to be very adaptable and unique to everybody's search, and being very unique to your location and where you are. The loads of these different things that really inform that search result.
And to answer the questions, because I see at least there's a couple of different people asking us, how do you link it? Let me see if I can pull the email up, or I might be able to share, because literally we have been doing this within your Google Ads accounts or your Search Console account. There is those little 3 buttons off to the side that allow you to link an account, and it's based on your domain. So as long as you have the same domain, and your domains have been validated depending of the two different methods you have for creating your Search Console account or your Bing Webmaster Tools account. If you have the pixel on page, Google should automatically identify that in either your ads accounts or the Search Console account. And you can, if you go into paid search ads, you can actually pop up and link, and maybe that's an article we can post or something we can write. There's a really good, I can find the help screen on Google Ads on how to do the connection there, but it allows you to connect Search Console and paid search accounts at the account level. And then from there, it pulls your account data together. So you can see the cost, you see revenue, you can see anything that has already passed through on both of the accounts linked into the same report.
Is it similar to, like, I know like in Google Ads, when I used to be very much into the Google Ads platform, there was a paid search and organic like tab in the reporting tab where you actually see paid search and organic stats, or is that something else?
I think it's something else because I haven't seen that tab in a very long time. And maybe it's our accounts, how our accounts are set up, because we have the most convoluted setup you can humanly possibly have. We have to run a separate account for every country and every product and everything. And we have like 121 countries we run in. So our setup is massive.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's a good topic to start off with. I actually really liked one of the main reasons I brought it up, I was excited to bring it up, is that this was our chat yesterday, or the PPC chat, of people talking about the importance of PPC and SEO, Nava Hopkins and Julie Biccini. So very amazingly led that conversation. And, you know, and because, you know, this was the paid search community, was all about how do people respect SEO, what's our empathy to what they do, how much do we talk and share data. And sometimes it's not even about the platform, it's about just sitting in meetings, requiring, you know, having those, like, whether it's monthly meetings, sharing search query data. A nice little crossover that I like to think is that, you know, if like you get a client that is insistent that they want to bid on a keyword that you, with your expertise, think this is not going to work, you could quickly go to your paid search counterpart and be like, can you guys just start bidding on these keywords and see if there's any volume for it, or if there's any relevance for it. And with that, you can get the data to take back to the client and going, guys, we're bidding on this keyword, it's not showing any volume. If we spend all your money and our time, start optimizing for this keyword, it's going to lead us nowhere. So that's amazing use case that you can use, I find.
That is a really great insight, because I don't think a day goes by where I don't hear we need to use this keyword or that keyword, because the client thinks it's literally this word, that people are searching for this word in this exact shape and form. So, you know, that requires a little bit of education on our part as PPC managers to explain how it works and share that with them. So that's great. I love that.
And I think going from that, it sort of falls into a new one of the other topics we were talking as we prepped for the seminars we were coming in, is that when you think about like our job, and this is how I tell my team, like we essentially get briefed by all the lines of business of what their goals and objectives are. Our job is to listen to what they're saying and to provide them with that strategy layer and overview that, based on their budget and based on their goals, objectives, will help them meet it. When we get those questions that come back about, I need to show up for the email I got on Monday from senior leadership, like, why are we not showing up for email migration? Like, well, you have a 7-to-1 revenue target. Email migration for Office 365 and Microsoft 365 for Outlook does not hit a 7-to-1 target. We don't do it for those very specific reasons, but being able to explain, like, here's our strategy, here's how we support it. Now, if you are willing to lax your goals, here's how we expand. So here is your base campaign strategy based on the goals and objectives you've given us. Now, for incremental funding and the ability to relax your goals, or to say, instead of a 7-to-1 revenue, we can drive 3-to-1 or 5-to-1. Here's the layers we would add on in terms of that strategy to drive the additional revenue, additional growth, additional everything. And where it also helps us as paid search experts is understand when they say it's this exact term. Okay, now we can get into match types. Now we can get into how do you think about that strategy, not just from a keyword perspective, but keyword plus match type, and then leveraging the AI that the platforms have and the data that you're submitting into the platforms to enhance your strategy? And I'm like long-winded to get back to the AI portion of the question. But then what Anu and I were talking about is like, how much data is enough data? What do you need to pass through into, whether you're using a bid optimization platform or a campaign management platform, or just the search engines in and of themselves? Like, how much data do you need? And should you trust giving data directly into the search engine platform? I'm going to stop right there because I know, Anu, you had a specific tip on this, and you want to talk, and then I want to go back in just around data and how you use data in the platforms.
Yeah, no, you continue on it. I think like the main tip that you're already touching on is this work, as much as SEO is thinking about how as much as it's very important to think alongside how paid search and SEO bring different things to the table, and needs to be used in different ways and can bring different features. There's some things that are very similar as well. I think historically, and one thing that was very, very lovely to see, that even with a lot of in the paid search industry, we know about SEO. The first month of my career in digital marketing, first 6 months of my career was in SEO. It's link building, was very salesy. So I didn't like that. So I switched over quickly. Because it takes maybe like 3 to 4 months of optimizing and hard work to get to the top. Got into paid search and I was like, oh, you bid on a keyword and my app shows immediately. Whoa, this is the life for me. No, I have no patience, zero patience. But what we also now need to realize that as the industry is getting more, trying to become a lot more sophisticated and a lot more adaptable, the machine needs a lot more data, and that might take 3 months. I know that's not a lot of what clients want to hear, and it's usually a lot less than 3 months. But I'd say at least a month or more to get the right amount of chunk of data, to get the right amount of volume of conversions. You hear these, hear the platforms, demanding these thresholds, and people are like, oh, that's too high. I'm a small business. And I'm like, I get you're a small business, but do you want it to start giving you ridiculous CPC projections and a lot of, mismanaging your budget? You literally do need to give it more data to be able to learn a lot better. Because that's what you were alluding to, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, and part of it for us, and it's, I have fun when I talk about this because I don't think people realize. So I work for Microsoft. You might be shocked to understand that we do not have Google Ads tracking pixels across our websites because they are a direct competitor in several lines of business. It has taken 10 years. Like, I was part of the conversation a decade ago. Earlier this year, we just started getting offline conversion import to pass data into our Google Ads accounts. And that probably seems somewhat crazy. That it's taken us that long, but we had to get senior leadership buy-in of sharing data and information that's not considered overly, like sharing the keys to the kingdom on our competitive strategy, revenue, everything else. And literally what we are seeing is I've been touting AI for 7 or 8 years. Like, it is amazing when you give Google and Microsoft advertising access to the data on your performance at a keyword level, the automatic shifts you'll see in performance, like when your ads are shown versus when your ads are not shown, the different match types, the bid adjustments, everything across the board, soup to nuts, has improved so dramatically. We're seeing 30 to 60% improvements on every campaign where we're passing data through on a consistent basis, because the AI then has the amount of information it needs to say, show the ad here, don't show the ad. Use different, like, instead of everything being on strict exact-ish match, like, I'm not gonna say exact-ish, yeah, whole other topic, use these variations of the ads. And like, it goes back to like having the story, having what we talk to the leadership team about our strategy. Like, they seem shocked every time we come in and say, listen, we are now using smart bidding, we're using these features. This is what we are seeing. It's amazing. AI is intelligent. It's super smart. By not passing data through, by not allowing the platforms, the data, you're taking a super smart system and making it as stupid as humanly possible. So when you think of RSAs, if you have all the different titles, descriptions, or headlines and descriptions, it's 64,000 combinations, I think, that you can pop up with. So what Google and Microsoft advertising will doing is show each 64,000 variations once, And then it goes back to the top and starts again. So if you imagine how many impressions, how many ads you have to show up to actually start to see performance and to manually adjust it yourself if you do not have the data in the platform, where it then says, okay, instead of 64,000, we're going to cut it down to 35. It's like the importance of data is only getting bigger.
Well, Christi, I mean, I totally hear what you're saying. That's definitely an issue when you don't have all of the tracking codes set up. Isn't that an issue for advertisers that have smaller volume accounts? Because I've seen that too. They just don't have enough going into it to get the data out of it.
Correct. And so what we've done, because I run, like I said, I have some huge, massive accounts and we have some smaller accounts. So what we have started to look at doing we have some where our conversion event, we've had to broaden what we consider a conversion event. So it is not necessarily the actual purchase event that's happening or the complete of a lead form, because getting to 30 even on like a $5,000 a month spend for us won't happen, because it is such a niche thing that we are trying to do with that specific line of business. So what I would say in those instances, this is where you want to think about your funnel or the specific actions or things that happen to say, okay, we really are trying to get, I'll do like a sale. But a sale might not necessarily happen 30 times a month. What is the next step up? What are the other actions that that person can take that you can also put as a conversion event that you then adjust your weighting as to what you optimize against and do? And so you essentially create that either the funnel view or that, I want to say multi-touch attribution, but it's not multi-touch attribution, it's multi-touch conversion, so that you can then pass enough data through so that you can hit the thresholds and the AI can learn. And then as you go into that, the conversion funnel, being able to then understand how do you more heavyweight a very specific event, so that end event that maybe only happens 5 times, not the 30 threshold, but 5, but you have to have 25 other actions that happen to get the data through to start those auto optimizations. Then you create, like if you're using a Marin or a Kinshu or Marin, Sky, Search Ads 360, Adobe Media Optimizer, in addition to smart bidding, like heavy weighting that one action so that it gets more weight to what that thing is, but you still have enough data to hit the thresholds. And how do you talk to your clients and customers, or Lisa, how do you talk to them about, do you do something similar or no?
Yeah, I mean, like it's definitely all about trying to get them to understand that, like, that whole, what are the different data points and touch points that could inform that a conversion is going to happen. And that's definitely how we try to talk to it with the clients. And I think a lot of our clients do understand that, and you get clients who have little brands that they're working with, and so our big sell is to be like, look, if you bring it into your platform, even search bidding can inform, like Google search bidding can inform how to bid on the social and how to bid on, display, and how to bid on programmatic and in different kind of ways. And that's because we pull in from loads of different platforms. And so, yeah, it's that importance of them being patient for the volume to come through, for us to them to really inform like what the different types of conversions could be, and pull as much of it in. Like literally, that's our biggest talking points with our clients.
And for me, the conversations, a lot of what I'm having is RSA is the new standard starting June 30th, I think. Is that the right time? Like sometime in June. Yeah. We still have over half our accounts on extended text ads that we're working through all of the updates, because we have to go through the brand review process that is fabulous and time consuming. And like, they're like, show us every ad combination. Like there's 64,000 of them. Do you really want me to create you a PowerPoint document with that? I can create it, but I can tell you the amount you're not going to be able to go through it. Like,
no,
I love y'all.
It's not where you want me to spend my time that you pay for on, like legit, like guys. That's what I think.
But like, as we're talking about, it's the like, here's why we're doing what we're going to do, and this is why, like, having that data, like, I mean, literally, it gets the value of all the ad testing platforms that I used to love and use all the time. And I feel bad for a couple, like friend Brad, who has a platform. I'm like, it does what you were doing on crack. I love it.
Right? Yeah, you finally get it when they start seeing like it being very, very intelligent and working towards their bid strategies and their CPAs going down, and like, whoa. And I'm like,
well, and I mean, literally, we're talking, you want to talk smart bidding and smart ads with one of our lines of business by getting data into the platform, and we have enough conversion data on it. What we were seeing is we were able to get our return on ad spend with smart bidding up to about 25x. Previously, without smart bidding, manually managing it as much as we could on our own, we were around 5x, which is still pretty flipping amazing, but like 25x. We're like, okay, well, now we can't spend your budget. We literally cannot, because we're performing so well that we're handing you back a bucket of cash every month.
Yeah.
So then for me, what I love about this is like, as you start to see the benefits of smart bidding, it's like, great, now let's talk about your non-brand and compete strategies. Let's talk about, with that extra chunk of cash, if you still have a very set goal, and I'm just going to use numbers like 5x, your 500% ROAS, here's what you should do with those incremental funds. Here's how you get top of funnel. Here's how you use your middle of funnel. Here's how you bid the holistic strategy, because now that we've got this bottom of the funnel thing performing so absolutely smoothly and well, you can afford to do the tactics you couldn't do previously. Yeah. And this is how you create that funnel, or I guess I've been talking a little bit less of funnel, and I go like this, because the cyclical strategy to drive your engine. So it's less of the funnel, more of the cycle. What do we call it? It's the cycle. It's the cyclical now versus the funnel. So
yeah. But can we actually, you brought that in, my brain was like, I have this tip, our next tip, and I want to be able to know how to tie it in. And as you were talking, I was like, there it is, that's how I tie it in. Like, it's that whole funnel bit, it's that whole funnel. People will come and they'll be like, and I've had this, I'm going, we want to do paid search, and I'll be like, what branding activity are you doing? Oh, none. And I'll be like, go away from me. Like, sorry, I the only answer I've got is, please come back later, come back another day. Like, it's, paid search does not create demand. Paid search absolutely does not create demand. We are very much, I think that you can work with paid search to do bits of, when people are in research mode. I don't think that's the efficient way to use paid search, but you can make something work there. If you have, if you have different levels of what conversion is, different ideas of what conversion is, like, they go to a certain page, that's what conversion is, like if you're measuring things in that way. But it usually is in that way. And you see a lot of people going, why am I not getting the volume? Why is the paid search not converting? And I'm like, you're not doing any other activity. Paid search cannot do it all. And I know like for like a friend of ours on the board as well, Kirk Williams, has given like his several examples of when clients have come to him and gone, yeah, we want to do paid search. We want you to do paid search. And he's asked about the activity that they're doing. And he's gone, this is going to be hard work. This is going to be very hard work. And these are loads of the things that you're going to have to put into place. Everybody needs to think about the funnel, about what a different activity works on the different funnel levels of the funnel.
Well, and I think Luna put in there the flywheel over funnel. I'm like, that's it. I'm like, man, yeah, I clearly, I have not had nearly enough coffee this morning. My sad little drink cup is empty. And so it's where you think like, we talk about the funnel, but in all reality, I know I was writing about this like 3 or 4 years ago. It's a little bit more flywheel based, because you want to have other channels that create the demand, and then search can capture the demand, and you just keep it spinning and keep it going by having data and information to then have those multiple touch points. And like the conversation I frequently have is, brand is efficient. I'm like, dear God, if I have to have another conversation of like around layer, like, yes, brand is always going to be efficient, but I call it the death spiral, because even when I was not at Microsoft, when I was at an agency, if you only ever focus on brand, you're talking to your audience over and over again. You slowly start to see that your brand queries go down and down and down and down, because you're never reaching people who are not aware that you exist. Absolutely. And so you slowly see the brand death spiral. Yes, it performs amazingly well, but if you don't do mid funnel and top of funnel type of campaigns, and you don't try to broaden your reach, search captures the demand, it doesn't generate it. Now you can do top of funnel, like a generic term, and I'm trying to think like, let's say in the travel industry, hotels in Minneapolis, hotels in London. If you're not doing that and you only ever say like insert brand name like Marriott London, Hilton London, you're only ever capturing the people looking for you.
Yeah.
And so while it's less efficient cost-wise, you're shooting yourself in the foot every
Yeah.
time. You only ever focus on the brand, and you will see that the capture of demand will go down and down and down and down and down. So you have to have those less efficient SEM tactics or other channels to help continue driving the demand. And it's why you have such challenges when you launch a brand new product that no one's ever heard of. They're like, why did no one ever search for fill in the blank name here? And you're like,
Really? Yeah.
like, one we did. Why did no one search for digital sovereignty? I'm like, because no one knows what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you put a blog post out in the ether and
Christy, I love those. I love those the most though, because you have to think very creatively about competitive, complementary offerings and products to get them on the map to drive demand for these new, new keywords. I love that. I think I love it.
oh, I love it, but I also love, like, I will get, and we call them briefs. So we get a brief from a business where they're like, we're launching a new product. We only want you to go after the product name. And we're like, no one's going to look for it.
Yeah.
No one's searching for it. And they're like, no, we only want this. And we're like, okay, well, we can do it. And we can tell you it's going to fail. And then 2 weeks in, we're like, we need to expand for these reasons. So like, why is there's only 10 searches last month? I'm like, because no one's heard of the thing you've done.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
capture the demand, we don't generate it. Again, capture versus generation.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I feel like some people have felt that because paid search became such a bigger thing that they could stop their spend in other areas. And you could be like, oh yeah, paid search is the nice, shiny new tool, and nice, new, amazing, reach our customers directly. Let's stop TV, let's stop the outdoor, let's stop everything else going on. And you're like, are you kidding me? That is not how you do it. I remember my favorite outdoor advert that this company did. It was a mobile company called Orange. And for ages, they just had an orange box. And that's all they did. No writing, no anything. And it was just like a billboard. It was like a billboard in different parts of London. And, you walk around going, what? And so when they came out and really started doing direct response and, referring to that, everybody knew. They got all the customers in. Everybody knew what they were talking about because they worked on the funnel. And it was both of those things working together that led to the success, not the fact that one over the other kind of thing. So still we don't see as much, I feel. I mean, you've seen some of them, especially those fake billboards that people are now posting up on social media. You'll be like, look at this billboard that someone put up, and it's just really a mock-up that someone has done. I feel we need to get more into those kind of really amazing, creative, random billboards that actually builds that awareness, builds that visibility, keeps it in top of mind before the person can even search for it and then build a campaign towards it. It's going back to integrated strategy. Start through the whole funnel, integrate that strategy across all much of your platforms as you can.
Agree.
Yeah. I think my next tip that I was going to go into, another bit of what I talk about mainly is about, and we've talked a little bit on these kind of things in terms of what your target is going to be, what you're looking for in terms of growing, and then what area you want to look into, and how paid search is actually extremely competitive still. In whatever field that you're in, even whether it's niche, even whether it's a saturated market, even where nowhere is in it yet, paid search is still very competitive. I think a lot of people are expecting CPCs of less than £1 or a pound something or a dollar something. And then when they see that CPC spiking up, they're like, something's gone wrong. Why is it so competitive? We need to stop on that activity. And you're like, you need to give it that threshold. And especially the better that you're doing it, that's the thing. I actually find the better that it's working out, the better ads that you create, your competitors start getting a lot more worried and then start doing more, and that might increase your CPCs. So knowing that and giving that information to clients, I think is very important as well.
Well, and knowing there's periods where you're going to see, and this is where, when I talk to my team about okay, we we meet with our core stakeholders either weekly or every other week, just based on the size of the campaign. And so then we do monthly reports and quarterly reports. And we do in-depth, like 2-hour-long calls for our monthly reports and like 4-hour-long calls for the quarterly business reviews and quarterly meetings. So like just saying, okay, well, the CPs increased 10%. Why? Let's get to the why behind it. Is it because our quality score dropped? Something happened on our end that affected landing page quality, match type, like the ad quality dropped or the ad relevance dropped and the landing page relevance dropped that might be impacting. So it's an us thing that we can fix. Or are we seeing, when we start to look at the competitive landscape, that we are seeing more people in the auction, more people in the space being more competitive in that space, that is then driving the cost to increase? Like, is it something we can control, something we can't control? If we can control it, or even if, let's say, it is more people in the auction, what can we do and what are the levers we can control to try to then increase our quality score or increase some aspect of it so that we can try to get the CPCs to maintain flat and not go up exponentially over time. And so it really then goes back to the, let's monitor who is there. When we see somebody come in, the bid spike, we can talk about it, but then what are we going to do? Do we adjust our goals? Do we adjust the target? Or can we then look at what we literally can control, which is ad quality, ad relevance, keyword relevance?
Yeah.
Our levers.
Absolutely. And I always say, in fact, something that, we have talked about in the PPC chat community is that if you are going into a space, which they are in a lot of these spaces, if you're going into a space that Amazon can compete in, be careful. Be very careful. Your CPCs, there are some CPCs that you're never going to reach because Amazon are willing to pay stupid amounts of money per click because, yeah, that's their model. Yeah. They're just trying to get the volume in. Because I remember that was it, that they were for a long time, especially on Amazon, like they're like the retail business, like, they were running on a loss because for them, they just wanted to get the revenue. For them, it was just get as much revenue coming through. So yeah, there's some brands don't try to compete against.
And maybe that's one of our tips, is understanding how do you talk to your clients, your customers, your boss, your leadership team about, I can't control what this other company is doing. I don't know what their strategy is. Maybe they are a loss leader and they're fine being a loss leader, but you have set very specific targets for us. And so we are operating within these constraints. This is what we can control. So based on that, here's how our approach and our strategy comes in. And some of the brands like Amazon, I actually use that as a case within our Azure business. Like, we will never do compete there because they will be willing to be very aggressive at potentially a loss, and we are not willing to. So like, we will never go into like, or maybe I won't say never, but like, we should not do direct compete because if they show up on our brand, are we willing, like, and it goes back to like tips, like, should you do, like, you could have an entire session of, should you do direct compete campaigns or not? Everybody has their opinions. There are times I'm like, yes, it makes sense to have compete campaigns, especially if you're trying to get awareness or you have a brand that is low consideration, brand where maybe people don't realize you're in that product, you're in that space. So you want to show up. Now, how you address your compete campaign, like, are you going after the high-end CPCs and bids to try to win that position over somebody else on their own brand terms? That might be a loss strategy. And are you prepared for what they might do against your brand terms if they get not super happy that you have done that? So like, having those moments in time when you might do compete versus non-compete. Like, there are times when we say yes, there are times when we're like, we are not willing to go down that path for these very specific reasons. And here's our strategy as to why.
It is why, absolutely. And that is a very much a classic case of, do you bid on your competitor's term? It depends. It's a very much, it depends on who's in the market. It depends on what your product offering is. Are you literally just offering the same thing, or are you literally even offering something that is not as good as the competition? So why actually even go there? And then, are you going to be ready for the retaliation? That is most likely to come. That is, we make that sure that's part of the conversation when a client is going, yes, we want to bid on our brand, our competitor's brand, we need to get in there. So yeah, it's a very interesting space to be in.
What I would say is, think about on that side, I'd say if you're thinking about compete, do you have moments in time or things that happen that make sense for you to be there from a compete standpoint? So I will use an example of, I'll use our gaming division as an example. So we don't do compete for our gaming products on a pretty consistent basis, but we will when we know that there are, like, well, I get in trouble for using this example, but when we know that there are major events that happen around launches or let's say gaming conventions, we'll, for like a 1 week window, we might do a compete campaign for only that window. And it's only like, hey, there's this big thing happening. We want to make sure that we also have visibility, but we are not going for a number one we're not going for a top of page strategy. We're going for like we tell our teams is this is a visibility play. It is awareness and making sure that like, hey, this is something that we're doing at the same time. We don't expect revenue, we don't expect the following, or we expect way lower than all of our other campaigns. But this is literally a moment in time that we are targeting. Here's what we expect, like here's expected spend, here's what we expect to get out on the back end, but we will not do a consistent always on strategy. And this is why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, always on strategy, stay away from that.
It's expensive. It's expensive. It's hard to maintain. Then you have to justify the budgets. At least on my mind.
Yeah, you're never going to have good quality score ever. The ads are always going to be really quite irrelevant, to what people are searching. It's not going to be relevant to what your ad copy is, what your landing pages are. So yeah, have like a solid, tight strategy around that. Loads of different targets, like have the targets be very different from what you have in terms of non-brand, because you're not going to see the same kind of performance, even if you do try to do it. And yeah, I'd say, be careful about it. The next point I wanted us to go to, which is something that we have touched on a little bit, with the whole paid search, SEO, especially those two working together, and the whole argument of, again, if we're ranking high for an SEO term, what's the point of doing paid search? Where some clients will argue, well, we've dominated brand. Why should I pay for a click on that landing page? But yeah, I think it depends is definitely the answer to that question. The answer, what I don't like is when people have that clear, no, we should never do it. Or yes, you definitely should. I think there's a lot of testing and a lot of getting the data, and don't assume based on somebody else's performance or somebody or other brands doing it or not doing it. Because we had that thing, was it last year or the year before, of a brand going, oh, we've never spent any money on paid search, not on our brand. So yeah, why should anyone else do it? And I'm like, do not just take a brand that is huge and well-known and compare yourself to them and decide that because that they didn't do any brand bidding, you not doing brand bidding, is the way to go.
Well, and you also have to think about like, what is your end goal and objective? So again, this goes back to, because I've done SEO and paid search, like, okay, great. What keywords are we ranking for? What is the landing page experience? Do we have a different, more targeted landing page experience that we want to take people to from a paid search that's further down the funnel, that we can have a more targeted ad that maybe doesn't go to your brand homepage, but goes closer to that bottom of funnel type of page you want to drive people into? What are these site links that you can have to then cross promote or do other type of advertising, because they don't have as much control on the SEO side. Like, I hate saying that, but it's somewhat true. Like, we get to choose what are the site links, what is the content, what are the call outs that you have, you own it. And so that's where you can make the case in terms of, when they show up together, you don't have to do the same page that's ranking for organically. You can choose a different section of the site, a different page, a different thing to highlight based on, again, goals and objectives, because you might have a slight different goal than the SEO team has. And for brand, especially on brand, most of the time they rank for a homepage. They don't rank for the further down, either a homepage, or if it's a product that they feature within it, it might be the product page, but is that the best product page? Do you have more specific pages in the site, or essentially I consider it down funnel, like a purchase page that gives more detail, more information that we would prefer people go to, but it's not what's ranking organically.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a really interesting question in here from Melissa, and she's asking if there's a space for women in PPC to get updates and probably to collaborate in that I'm part of the Slack PPC channel, but it's so male dominated.
Yeah, it is. I have tried to create a space.
This is one of the niches in marketing that is very male dominated.
This.
And it always has been. You see a lot of women in marketing, a lot of women leaders, a lot of women in advertising, but this PPC area.
I don't know. I mean, it is. There's no doubt about that. But I know loads of women in PPC as well. Let's put it that way. I think if you go looking, you can find. If you go looking, I think a lot of people sit in their offices and they look at their office, and I get it. In my office, it's male dominated. On the About Us page of the company site is male dominated. I get that, but I go looking. I've made a list. I do this thing called Women Crushed Wednesday for the sake of these are the women in PPC. These are the women in SEO. These are the women in content. They are there. We are there. Several people have crowdsourced, that list, that data. I've got a Slack channel. It was very UK based, where I call it like women in digital. And and it's just for people. Yeah. In the UK, we're doing like a, learn and share sessions. And maybe I will take that online. Maybe I'll, invite that for a lot of people, for anyone who wants to join, wherever you are. But I genuinely know, and each of the people I know then know more women who I don't know of. So there's a network.
I'm trying to think, is like in the paid search space, I'm not actually aware of a paid search one specific to it. I know in SEO, you have the Tech Women SEO. And I want to say, I think it was Arish that created Tech Women SEO, or she's one of the founders on that really put a lot of effort into.
It's her baby.
I'm pretty sure it was Arish that did that. It's fabulous. And I want to say it's thousands strong at this point, which if you think of technical SEO, women is not what comes to your mind. Like, women are so underrepresented in that space. I would say, at least in paid search, I think there's more visibility of women in paid search than you have in the technical SEO space. But I'm like, I know I also haven't taken the time to create it, so I feel bad. There was one question we did miss earlier up in the chat.
Okay.
And I want to say, like, who wrote this? Was it Okay, Kathy had asked, if you use Search Ads 360 and automated bid strategies, do you recommend creating separate strategies for Google and Bing? I can't answer for Search Ads 360 because I am not allowed to use that product. It is dead to me. We jokingly, every time we do a tech platform review, I have 3 that I talk through, and like the other one, I just put a black box over it. I'm like, there's another one that it doesn't exist to me, because even if I wanted to use it, it would never be allowed. I don't know. I know, or Lisa, if you have a viewpoint, I can tell you what I do for the other platforms, but I'll let you guys go if you guys use SA 360 or no.
Well, Marin, hello, like, come to Christi. We're in the same boat. 360 are dead to me right now. As of January, I am not allowed to speak though.
Lisa, do you do SA 360? Okay. So I can talk to a competitor to Search Ads 360. It is a little different in Search Ads 360, I think, than what I am using today. And I'm not going to name the platform we use, but we do have a platform that is not Search Ads 360 that we have them grouped together. And we have the same, unless you have a separate goal or target by the search engine, that is the only time I tend to separate them out. The instance I would say that we are doing a little bit differently now is based on our tech platform. We are working on our offline conversion import for Microsoft advertising, but the platform you're using has the ability to push the data straight into Microsoft ads instead of having the API connection where we send it directly. Because of that, and that integration, we've actually had to separate Microsoft advertising from Google, because it'll send all data in that portfolio over into Microsoft advertising, including all the Google data. And so we found issues by having them integrated into the same portfolio. I would strongly prefer not to do that, because then again, you go from having lots of data to very minimal data, and it reduces the amount of data that you get. in the tech platform for making decisions. But that one is it was a nuanced reason why we had to do it, because when we were sending the Google Ads data into the Microsoft advertising, it was going like, oh my God, what's happening? Because it freaked out because the volume was so much greater than what it should have been.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, similar to the answer you gave, like, yeah, we obviously don't use SA360, but in Marin, the platform, again, an annoying answer that a lot of people give, it depends. I'm sorry to say it depends. It depends. It's one of those things. See how the performance were. What would I recommend? Yeah, it depends. I think it could work in your favor, very much in your favor, to have one bid strategy that has Google and Microsoft advertising data in there, and the performance of one platform informs the other and allows you to pull up the volume. As I mean, Christi, as I'm sure you know, the volume is much more coming in than Google. When you have a Google campaign, when you have a Bing campaign, it might be the same keywords. The volume that is coming from Google is a lot more than what you're getting through Microsoft. And so in that way, we would suggest for some clients, and not all, for some clients, to go, hey, maybe, yeah, mix the bid strategies and have like the Google data and Bing data in the one bid strategy, and seeing whether the performance of the Google can help what's going on in the Bing. So sometimes we would suggest that.
Yeah, and Kathy did a follow-up. She said our Bing rep recommends it because they've seen Bing volume decrease when they have both in the same bid strategy with automated bid strategies. So that might be something else. I'm like, so far, I would say how we're doing it today, I haven't seen that. But I also think I am in a slight different boat since I am at Microsoft. And I tell my team, like, you will max out your Microsoft advertising spend. I believe in eating our own dog food. And we also see, because we are like, we're selling and we're advertising Microsoft products, for some odd reason, Microsoft products on Microsoft search engine does phenomenally well, like 10x better than on Google. It's like, yep, they know who we are. They recognize the products and services.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our performance might not be the industry standard, and we acknowledge that. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
We are coming to the end of our webinar here, ladies, and I am so sorry to say, and it has been a pleasure to have you here. And
that has flown by.
I know it did fly by.
I'm looking at the clock going, whoa, really?
I could hang out more, but so we're going on the Paid Search Association website. We are going to post links to some of these follow-ups, and probably a blog post. We're still kind of figuring that out, which is good because we're open-minded and we have so much feedback today that will help us in the direction. We're also going to be posting the video and notes. So
I know we have 1 minute. Should we do our final, like, if you have one thing, here's the one thing we say?
My one thing is to make sure you have a good work-life balance. And I do yoga to deal with all of the namaste, to deal with all the PPC stress.
That's a very good tip. I was going to go along the lines of that, because remember that, at the end of the day, we are not curing cancer here. None of the things we do is life or death. I think to myself, no matter how stressed a client is, if someone calls me saying my dad is in the hospital, I will drop everything. I don't care how desperate a client is. For me, family anyway comes absolutely paramount. So just remember that. Do your job with joy and passion and professionalism, but remember, it's not the be all and end all.
And I was going down the PPC specific text. I'm like, yeah, now I'm like, I should do something different now. No, I was just going to say.
Can you actually do a PPC though? Because we've taken the whole life balance advice.
I'm like, I do the work-life balance as well. But I'd say on the PPC side, remember, always assume positive intent. Your clients, your boss, your partners, your stakeholders, they are trying to grow their business. They are trying, like they are so passionate about their business that how we engage and interact with them is keep positive intent and try to understand, like, they might also be stressed because they're trying to see, like, how do I keep my business afloat? COVID has been tough on a lot of small to medium-sized businesses, enterprise as well. So they're under immense stress, and they expect and they demand that paid search helps them achieve those goals. So then how do we put our hat on to say, okay, I get that they might be demanding, they might be asking a lot of us. What are the ways that we can look at that strategy and say, based on what you've asked, this is what we can do. And here's what we'd recommend on top. Like, think through your strategy, not just to answer their question, but to help them with that growth, to help them understand the possibility, because that will help you form and forge that relationship to build stronger partnerships in the long run. And when you get those urgent emails, we're like, drop everything. It's like, just remember positive intent on the back end. And like you said, keep professionalism, keep polite. And I don't know, my friends say toxic positivity with me because I'm always smiling. I'm like, I think it's because if I wasn't, I would probably be crying half the time.
Honestly, Christi, I absolutely definitely appreciate that advice you've just given. And it's gonna be very timely for me. Apparently, I'm about to be given a client that may be quite difficult. That people are already going, oh Lord, God help. So I am going to be having your voice in my head with all these kind of things of assume positive intent. And I've already said to like my manager going, you know what? I get that difficult clients may just be under pressure. Somebody is just being very difficult to them, and they think to yourself, well, who are we paying? You know, so I'll just shout on that person as well. So I'm like, yeah, maybe at some point we'll probably just have this suggestion. We'll just take them out for a drink, for dinner, and just be like, what is going on? Chat
more coffee for me. Awesome.
Anyway, yeah. So no, absolutely amazing advice.
Well, thank you all. And I get to hop into my next meeting. So I hope your new client goes well. And Lisa, thank you for inviting us all.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.